Good to go?
Good evening. Welcome to Halton, Arizona, and tonight's Chino Valley Unified School District Board meeting. I appreciate everyone coming out this evening. If you would, just stand, we'll have the pledge, and we're going to look at I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. Moving right along, agenda item 4 is our adoption of our agenda. Does anyone have anything that they need to pull from tonight's agenda? Any other questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda. All in favor? Fantastic, thank you. Call to the public. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on anything on the agenda, or we can wait until that time? It's not on the agenda this evening. Information and discussion. Mr. Scholl.
So we have, I asked Stan Galagowski from the Yellowknife County Education Services Agency to come on and speak about the Final Mile project, which is slated to bring hopefully high-speed internet to Pullman. So go ahead and
Stan Galagowski with the Yellowknife County School Superintendent's Office. So the Final Mile project here is really brought to you courtesy of the schools and the libraries. About 5 years ago, we brought federal funding through our E-rate program for the Federal Corporation Commission to all the schools and libraries to get high-speed fiber to 74 locations throughout the county. And one of those locations is actually the Halton Library. So there are communities that now have this fiber brought to them. And when the county received ARPA money, so the American Relief Plan Act money, they received $43 million, and they could input it into anything related to infrastructure. And the County Board of Supervisors decided to put $20 million towards that. We're also bringing in other towns, so all the 8 municipalities that also received the ARPA funds, they're basically buying into a bigger project. Because we realized that the middle mile through the schools and libraries was already built in Yellowknife County. And that's significant because it really accelerates the process of the broadband to the areas where all the other counties at this point are just trying to build that middle mile. So we're postured in a great position to bring fiber to the premise. Well, it is fiber to every residence, so home, establishment, and business throughout the county. So that's over 213,000 people in the county to do it. They're doing this in places all over the country, in big communities, small communities, flat communities, hilly communities like Boulder, Colorado. They also use a mix of fixed licensed wireless too, because the United States Navy just released a frequency band just for this, so it's not going on any other type of wireless means that kind of gets bogged down, when you think of wireless. So at the time, it's a significant opportunity for us to utilize this money, and the schools and the libraries are in the lead for this project for the county because they figured we've done it once, why not do it again for everybody else? And so we decided to do that. And that's what this Final Mile project will be. Yes, sir. Sure.
Yeah, I am very involved with our library next door.
Yeah.
So earlier this week, I went over and had our librarian do a download test, and she got 90 megs per second download. I'm on the same Century Link line down the street, and I get 30 at home. My question is, did you do an upgrade at Century Link, or did you bring in new service to the library?
So for this particular location, it was specifically a spark light feed in there. Yeah,
Okay, so there is no cable going into the library.
there is.
Fantastic. Now, next question. How do you plan, now that they have that service, from a technical standpoint, how can they expand that high download speeds out to the rest of the community, or is it going to only be whatever can be contacted directly from the library itself?
Yeah, excellent question. Sparklight was very smart when they put in lines. They put in a much larger capacity than what the library was ever going to use, because what they put in the capacity for the community. So if the community were ever to pull off of this fiber line, there'd be enough fiber in place to do so. So they did that on their own, since the trench was already open, since the conduit was already run. But the problem was that it never penciled out for them to pay for all those lines by themselves. So there wouldn't be enough homeowners to really compensate for that. Fast forward, now we have this money that can be used for the build that the internet service provider doesn't have to pay for. And so a bigger piece of this is not only just bringing the fiber or the high-speed internet to the home, but it's going to greatly reduce the price to the customer because they don't have to recover that cost.
So, bringing the cost of bringing it out to this hub at the library.
That's right, and we learned that through our project because even the fees that we put to our more rural or urban schools that already had a fee, they thought, well, why do we buy into it? We haven't found enough connection. Well, the price reduced by 87% of the cost. So the price that like Chino Valley was paying for the broadband, they could increase it to 4 times as much for the same amount of money. So that's what we would be doing here too, because the ISPs have to recover those costs.
That's great. And I would hope that somehow, the next meeting start, that can be made, notice can be spread through this community, because there's a lot of communities here that there's no fiber optic cable anywhere. I think the big Chino line is the only one in the entire area of railroad tracks. Whereas I say, it's capacity, it's not correct, or not cable. That's how bad it is, the customer, the competition. But no, that's excellent, and I'm really happy to hear that Sparklight has got a new cable to the library, and I'll be working with our librarian to make sure that we get all sorts of creative ways of using it. Thank you very much.
And the individual customers, do they need to be SmartLight customers, or if they are an existing customer of someone else, do they reap those benefits also?
So what'll happen is we just released an RFP and it'll go out on the 13th, and that'll be the ISPs are going to come back within 45 days. Because of the magnitude of this project, we're getting national broadband providers that are coming to the table. The line that is already in these locations from Sparklight, they're going to lease from Sparklight. Sparklight will bid on it, but I guarantee there's going to be lots of other providers that are going to show that they can do this at a certain cost of the customer. So all those things are really going to be at play for this. So Sparklight may have a piece of that, but the biggest piece they will have is that leasing power to whoever is awarded the
The problem is right now, as far as my communities, as far as I went home after I tested the download speed to the library, said, well, let me see if I had any great service. I've only been able to struggle with 30 megs download, so I went home 30 megs, I couldn't even get to 30 megs download. So unfortunately, there was no interplay between what the library is getting and the existing providers that are not smart.
Any other questions?
I have one. So Sandy, you mentioned the RFP is going out on the 13th, and then there's a 45-day while the request for proposal is out. Any wild guess about kind of timeline? Is this months, is this years, decades? And when can people in Pullman kind of expect something to be happening?
Right, so we're being very aggressive with this. So from the time we are requesting, it's an 18-month bill from the time that the award is out. And that's a concentration on all those easier to reach locations as well as the hard to reach locations. We've buffered in an additional 6 months just in case there's a place like Crown King that's really, really difficult, but those are going to be kind of the more difficult places like Sedona that we know with more time. So it's an 18-month timeline from December is what we're looking at. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, we know about all those supply chain issues that are going on around the country, and fiber is one of those issues. There's already warehouses full of fiber that can get drawn from, and we want to be first to the table. Also, whoever we award the RFP to, it's important for them to get out, get going, get this under their hat, show success, so that they can then roll into other RFPs or other connections, so they can show proof of success. And so that's why we're driving so hard.
Really exciting.
It's an exciting time.
Very informative, thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Thanks, Jan.
All right, item 6B, Mr. Shaw, emergency connectivity.
So I'm going to ask Larry Fulmer, our IT director, to come up, and he's going to talk a little bit about the emergency connectivity fund.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So John wanted me to come and talk to you about the Emergency Connectivity Fund. And I believe we brought this up before, but this is more of a refresher because we just are on round 2 of this. So originally, the Emergency Connectivity Fund was part of a lot of the federal new packages that came out. And its intent was to get devices and internet to students and staff at home to use, because nationwide there are a lot of people who are schooling from home. So during a 45-day window from June 29th to August 13th, there was a filing window open where we could ask for devices. During that time, we tried to collect as much data as we could. It was the summertime. Not a lot of people were engaging with us, but we did the best we could. And in that time, we identified 316 Chromebook devices, 63 hotspots, and we were also able to get Wi-Fi devices for school buses. So should this be approved, 8 of our school buses will be hardwired to be hotspots, basically. So if we ever went to a lockdown situation again, and certain schools did this in the nation, they would drive a school bus out to a certain location, and people would come to that bus to get internet access. And so we will have this. We identified 8 buses, 4 of them being activity buses, I believe, and 4 of them being our own Halton buses, where kids were on the buses for an hour at a time. So if they had a device, there would be a Wi-Fi signal put out while the bus is active, and they could be online and do their work. But we also identified 2 portable units that we could put into, say, a van, anywhere that would have what I still call a cigarette lighter, which they have a fancy name for that now. You can plug it in there and you can put out a signal. So if we say we had a sports trip, anything else, all this is filtered, by the way, just so you know. So that's kind of one of the conditions. So we've already asked for this, August 13th was the deadline. The budget originally was supposed to encompass everything for this school year, and then what was left over was supposed to potentially cover any costs we had during the lockdown year for March 2021. They changed their mind and decided that what was left over, they would open up a second filing window, which began on September 28th, and it's running through next week on October 13th is the deadline. So this has given us, the rules haven't changed. This has given us another opportunity to reach out, collect data from our parents, to try to find out who needs devices, dedicated devices, for their students at home. There's a online form that's on our website that people should go to and fill it out. I'll go over some of the questions that are on there. And we're not going to hunt everything down. We just need some backup. So when we ask for the devices, and if we ever get audited, we can say we bought this many because we had this many families say they needed devices or internet hotspots for their families. So we put out Blackboard Connect calls numerous times since we knew this was coming. And so this is just kind of our final push to the end because we're going to have to collect this data. This is a Department of Education survey that we're using. I had to reach out, I had to collect our data, go through it, make sure somebody didn't apply again for that already had something on the first batch. and then we can go from there, and by next Wednesday, we have to get those quotes, they have to be put in, and then hopefully we're waiting for the approval. We still haven't got approval for the first batch, I'm told maybe this month, we'll just have to wait and see. So that form right now, if you want to get to it, it's on our school district website, chinoschools.com, under the IT Help Desk tab. There's an English and Spanish translation links. The form itself is in both English and Spanish. It asks for simple things like your email address, your name, your school district. We accept any, territorial elementary, we look for all of those. How many students in the residence don't have a dedicated device? Do you have internet at home, like reliable internet, not cellular internet? So we're just trying to collect information like that. Do you have any barriers? Is cost a barrier to getting internet at home? Is the speed, we were talking about that, is the speed a barrier? And so we're just trying to collect this data and try to come up with another list of devices that we can get for students to use at home. And it's only at home. We can't hold these devices at the school district. The district owns the devices. We will identify the students and staff is included in this, by the way, and we will check those out for those individuals, similar to how we checked devices out last year. And that is for that student to use at home. We have to track these devices for 3 years, and then after that, I guess we can do, at least the plan now is what we can do with them what we want. So we're just trying to collect that. Okay.
So after the approval process and that they get approved, is there any cost to the district?
Zero cost. Once it's approved, it basically, it's similar to a grant, from what I understand. We get front-loaded the money, we buy the equipment, and then I guess we wait because again, we have slow delivery of some items. So, but it's even like I said, zero cost to schools. So it's a win. It really is. It's good.
Any additional questions?
One quick question for me. Larry, can you maybe share with the board and those watching on YouTube, family of 5,
Yes.
5 kids, what could they get as part of this program?
If all 5 kids need a dedicated device, they will get 5 Chromebooks. School district uses Chromebooks. We have control of the Chromebooks anywhere there's internet access, and those Chromebooks are filtered via our web filter. And then each household is eligible for a hotspot, or something that provides internet access. We have some hotspots that we're going to bump up their data plans on and check those out. So it's 1 internet access, 1 device per household, and a device per student. So larger families might still struggle a little bit because of those restrictions. When you try to bump 4 or 5 devices through 1 internet point like bottom down. That's pretty much the best we can do. So.
Are they based on income guidelines or?
All they have to do is say, that's as simple as that. So
So
at
then
the end of the day, I'll see a
a
parent's name, I will see a number of students that need devices, and that goes on my list, and we've got a justification to, we've had, in the first filing, we had people say they had 8 students that needed it. So we put it in. We also, like I said, we did staff, and we under 20, we requested under 20 Chromebooks for all of our staff to use if they want to at home. We did, I believe, 12 hotspots for our staff to potentially check out. So, and if those numbers jumble, if we have a staff member that says they don't, we have another device that we can potentially set up. Because I know there are people that might put later, or that just didn't get the message, and hopefully we can take care of it.
Yeah, I want to mention it's important that people sign up because those that sign up in either the first survey or the second survey are going to be first on the list. And only those remaining devices will go to others that are not on the list. So it's imperative that if you're interested, to go onto the district website, chinoschools.com, or the IT Help Desk, and fill out that survey. That's the only way you're going to be guaranteed, if we get this, if we get the devices, the only way that you'll be first on the list to be.
One last question. So during the pandemic, when we gave out the hotspots, there were some issues with, I believe, I may be wrong, the data being used all at once, or initially, are we going to have some parameters?
These will be unlimited packages, but granted, there's always an asterisk with cellular companies, it's usually limited up to so many gigs per month, and then it throttles it back.
And we'll monitor that.
And yes, and we have the ability to monitor it. We were able to get, I believe it was 147 hotspots from Sprint/T-Mobile when they merged, what they call the Project 100 Million. We received 147 hotspots for zero cost with a very low year data plan. What we're doing is actually requesting for that really low data plan to be bumped up to the limit per month. And granted, it'll be for a year. There's still some talk about these programs being extended into year 2, year 3. Some of this may actually be incorporated into the E-rate program, which is an ongoing program. We just don't know. So it is a bit of a gamble. We may end up putting hotspots on school buses, and then nothing funds, and now we have decorative ornaments on our school buses because we don't want to pay for the data. That's a possibility. But again, with the zero cost of the school district right now, I think we're foolish to not request some of this and take advantage of it. So, does anyone else have any questions? Anything comes up?
Thank you, Larry. Item 6C, our superintendent.
All right. So I want to give a shout out and thank you. A few years ago, shortly after I became superintendent, I really wanted to bring a board meeting to home. And so this has come to fruition, obviously. I want to thank Peter. He was our liaison with the, I think it's Jeff Stewart, who is the community center here in Paulden, set us up on a date. I want to thank Larry and Matt Santos, who's not here, and Lawrence, who kind of got the technology and been working so that we can actually get this out onto YouTube. And then Karen Hickson had a significant amount of to do with the setup and coordination with Jeff and everything else. And so I'm just glad it came to fruition. Hopefully this is something that we can continue maybe on an annual basis, just coming out here. But about a third of our kids come out of home. And I think we need to show a presence in the community, and I'm glad that it's worked out. Yes, I did see that. Yeah. I think you went on to and I think you put it on the Taco page. And so I did a phone call, I did, got the information got out. So, and thank you for coming, sir. I appreciate you coming. But, want to try to make sure that that's something that we can continue in the future. Not a whole lot of changes in our enrollment. Still about 150 over last year, but it's at pre-pandemic levels. And again, we'll continue to lose throughout the year at high school and gaining K-8. That's just the typical cycle that happens annually. But for the most part, our overall number should remain fairly stable through the remainder of the school year, through the 100th day, until that number becomes, but it was 22. Yeah, we were at 2060, I think, was our final 100 day last year. So I think it's low to 22, 20 or something like that. Yeah. COVID-19 update. You have on your, behind this update, we have 2 reports. We are still in the substantial high transmission for our cases and percent positivity. That's probably going to be this way for a while, but I think we did have a blip last week where it went up from cases from 224, I'm sorry, it's hard to read, 224 to 250. I think it's going to go down. Probably the lowest it's been since July this week, or this past week, because the numbers for last week will come up tomorrow. So it's going to go, I think it's going to go down substantially. You can also see the last page is the cases in Yavapai County. And the cases, the first 2 columns are Chino Valley and Paulden. And you can see in the past week, Paulden's had a total of 5 cases, and Valley's had a total of 32 cases in the entire, so less than 40 cases in the entire district. Okay? It has the cases for the other school or the other communities in the Tri-City area, then overall for the county, and number is interesting. You can see at one point it was double digits, even last, or the end of September it was, but hopefully that number will go down as well. One thing that you need to remember is this is the entire county, including the Verde Valley. There's been, I would say, this is just based on the numbers, a disproportionate number of cases in the Verde Valley compared to the rest of Sacramento. And you can see that, I tried to show that by daily cases in Quad City, but if you look, for example, last Friday, there's 100 cases, 52 in the Quad City. We have about 2/3 of the population inside the mountain, and only half the cases in the Quad City area. So, you know, you have to kind of look at that information when you're looking at the entire county. But in the community, we're doing pretty good, and I think overall it's trending down over time. And definitely better than it was once school started. Once school started, we had a significant increase, and since that time, it's not been significant.
I was curious, I was looking this afternoon, the Democratic County infection rate of 1,000 is better than their both counties. There's 4 places.
Yeah. Well, and this really happened when things started. We've always had fewer cases per population than other areas of the state as a county. And so, because we are the fourth largest county after Pima, Pinal, and Maricopa. And we were having cases like down to number 10 in the case for 100,000. So, any other questions so far? The Asba County meeting is scheduled for October 19th. It's going to be held via Zoom. I have signed up. If you are interested in attending it, it's at 5 o'clock on that day. On the 19th, you can have Karen and she'll sign you up. You can watch from the convenience of your home. There'll be a legislative update from ASBA and so forth. They do give awards out that night. And we have somebody that's not going to be able to attend that's going to get an award. I'm going to pass it off to Cindy.
Thank you. So tonight I want to recognize Peter. And he is receiving his certificate of orientation for Arizona School Boards Association. Congratulations. Wait, how do you do this? Congratulations.
There we go, yeah. Congratulations, congratulations.
Smile for the camera.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So, again, if you want to sign, thank you, congratulations, Peter. It really was like the initial training to the ASBA as a new board member that you guys got award. So, if you're interested or care to know about the county meeting, then following up, we have the ASBA annual conference, which is going to be December 16th and 17th, and there is a half-day conference on the 15th. This is going to be held at the JW Marriott Desert Ridge Hotel, which is in North Phoenix, north of the 101, I think, and close to 51. And registration begins next week. So if you are interested, please let Karen know, and she will sign you up. You should have been receiving some emails from ASBA about this. You want it, if you're even thinking about it, please let her know because the rooms will run out. So you can book your room and probably cancel. And then it's, I'm planning on going. I don't have to book a room because when Prescott's booking my wife a room, so I stay with her. But we'll get the registration done. But I'll be down there. There's also some ASA, school administrative meetings that I'll be attending. But it's a big conference, some neat things going on there. And especially if you want lots of vendors, but some sharing of what goes on, kind of neat things going on in various other districts. So just let Karen know, she'll get that scheduled. Lastly, one of the neat things that we get to do as administrators is we get to honor our teachers and other staff members. And if you recall, last year we did this on a monthly basis. And we scaled it back to be on the quarter, a little bit more exclusive, so there'll be 4 of these throughout the year. And yesterday morning, we were able to go out to our schools, all 4 schools can recognize all of our teachers and staff members of the quarter. I do want to mention that Donna at JEDS, she is our sponsor of this. When you get us award, Matt takes her picture and it's on Facebook with a little frame. And then Donna gives them a nice sweet goodie along with a gift certificate for lunch at JEDS. So I thank Donna at JEDS for sponsoring us. So just to kind of name who we had at the Territorial Early Childhood Center, our teacher was Dory Gibbons, who's new to the district. And so that's exciting to see new to the district teacher. Our staff member is Mary Zaborniak. At Del Rio, we have a brand new teacher, Alvis, and our staff member was Linda Fedone. At Heritage, we have a former student of mine, a CDHS grad, Brian Parnell, and our staff is Lauren Thompson. At the high school, our teacher was Matt Dunn, and our staff member was Doug Hartgrove, and our district staff member who's been working her tail off to get our buses going with all kinds of challenges is Chris Wolf. And it was funny, I had a meeting with Chris on Monday afternoon, and she goes, can we just not, she didn't know she was meeting us on Tuesday, can we just not make the whole this whole transportation department, because they've all been working so hard to keep things going. So, Chris is just one of the main persons of the transportation department, but I want to give kudos out to all our bus drivers who are working, and mechanics, and dispatcher, and secretary. Our dispatcher and secretary should be in the office to operate buses. And so, everyone's working hard in that department to try to get our kids to and from school, and we're trying to come up with some ideas on how to address that driver shortage, but it's not just me.
It looks like there's a great personnel report.
Yes, and we can talk about that at that point, but we do have some driver trainings on the personnel report.
Well, I was going to tell you that my little one that was in first grade, he told me that he said, what's the leader of our school's name? And I go, oh, John Schultz. I thought you were driving a van. You did? He said, yeah, you dropped his kids off. I was like, well, that's really good to hear.
Well, and there's a lot of other principals that were driving. I know we have assistant principal that was driving CTEC kids in, and so we've been doing our best to try to get kids to and from school. But it's hard right now, and not just routine.
For the teachers and staff of the quarter, do they get nominated, and who nominates?
It's typically nominated by the principal. The principal, and in some cases, the principal will reach out to other staff members, other administrators, but ultimately it's the principal's responsibility. Although the district is something I get issues. And I get input from others, but I ultimately for the district, I'm going to discuss that.
That's great. I know we're not told that before, I just
Yep.
refresher. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 61, our financial reports.
I think we got this. Anything going on that? Period. So I'm going to just summarize 3 things. President, board, superintendent, Joe, staff, and guests. I can't let Larry before head of meetings introductions and welcome. We just blew that one away, so I got to notice that. So 3 things on the financial report for the month ending September 30th. We had a little discussion at the end of last month's meeting about the encumbered amount and the amount of our budget there. And if you look on that page, you see our budget this year for our operating is right now $14.5 million. If you take the 110,000 there that we haven't encumbered yet, and you add the grant monies to it, you get the $644,000, and that's not really got any hands on it. Use that 400,000 to keep some that don't get money a lot at the beginning of the year to keep them in the black. The county funds our cash, and so do we. So you can see out of that 14.5 million that our budget's at right now, there's about 4%, really close to 4%, that we haven't truly budgeted. It's in play, but we loan it to these other funds, and then once the money comes in, they repay the operating. So that's the short answer. Any questions on that, Mr. Tony? I think we talked
I'm
about it.
earlier.
So we're good on that. Okay, good deal. So if we look at the cash funds, which one I wanted to highlight a little bit, and it's Fund 691. If you look at those cash balances, that page, it starts with, there's 5 columns on that page. The first one is beginning cash, and 13,000 on that page for cash funds, 13,000. It's money that was in that building removal fund from a couple years ago. I haven't really dealt with that, it's just money that we inherited. And then once you look at that 13,000 beginning, you've got revenue of 28,000 and expense of 28,000, and that's the way that fund works. Right now, we've got purchase orders out there for about 650,000 for roofing projects and for air conditioning projects and for weatherization projects at every site. Total all those purchase orders is, again, right around 650,000. You subtract that 28,000 that we've paid, and you're left with 594,000 still to be collected and paid. And those projects are ongoing. In fact, I got the second round of invoices the 29th of September. So we submit those to the school facilities board, they turn around and pay it to the county. When I pull down the revenue from the county, we're in good shape, then the money's in our bank account, and then that's when they're released. Other than that, I think the month of September was a fairly routine month. Any questions on that report?
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll go on to the student activity fund while you're there.
Sure.
Thank you.
Student activity fund is more activity than we had last year. In the first 2 months of this year, we've already got more activity than we did last year. You'll see a line item there for $2,324. This is from the ag account. We've got support from Miles Holder, one of our ag teachers, 16 students and 3 advisors heading to Indianapolis at the end of the month, and they've spent close to 16 to 17,000 on rooms and transportation and shuttles. And you see a little bit also came from this account. Lucky for them, they've got about 5 different fund sources that they're using to transport those students to that national FFA event in Indianapolis at the end of the month. And that's really all I can highlight. We had 120,000 in that student activity most of last year. Now we're down to 106, but we'd like to see it be.
Any questions? Thank you for the information.
Thank you.
All right, items 7, 8 through 8, tonight's consent agenda. So you're going to take a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Fantastic. Moving right along to our personnel report. Item 8.3. I'm sorry, this is not a personnel report. This is an addition of a paraprofessional for the Del Rio Center's classroom. Do not see the.
She's not really here, but I'll take it.
Thank you.
It's fairly straightforward. We have a young lady at Del Rio who is autistic and has never been in school in the United States, and we don't think she's been in school in Mexico. She comes from Mexico. And so we need a paraprofessional to help her. And part of the issue is we want these paraprofessionals to Spanish. So this para would be in the center's classroom at Del Rio under the supervision of the tutor and work individually with the student. At the same time, they work with other students when available, but this paraprofessional's focus would be on this young lady.
Any questions for Mr. Chino? No. Pretty straightforward, looks like it's needed. With that, again, I'll entertain a motion to approve this action item.
I'll make a motion to approve for the approval of an additional paraprofessional.
One last opportunity for questions or comments. Fantastic. Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Now,
All right, so moving on to the personnel report. I know that Sharon gave a little slip there. It disappeared. Anyway, there's a supplement, so please refer to the supplements. I have, yeah. She just doesn't count for me. I know she had my
I
last.
just like you just did that right off the top of your head.
No, she takes good care of it. So we have a couple new teachers, some new classified, and the exciting number 4 is actually returning CPHS grad, so that's exciting. Some classified substitutes, and these I think are what you're talking about, Mr. Atona. We have a substitute van driver and 3 driver trainees. 2 of them are strictly want to do field trips, which is okay, because we have had to cancel a couple of athletic events, because our focus has been on transporting kids home to and from school, and we had to cancel this one JV football game, and so these drivers will allow us to not worry about athletics. That's all we want to do is field trips, and so that's going to be helpful. And then we have a van driver. We tend to transport a significant number of kids by van to various places, and then one regular training. Some resignations. One is at the end of the school year, just so you know. We have some certified changes. One includes our school psychologist who's in the Netherlands. We're trying to get him to work remotely, and he's going to be able to work remotely for us while he's there. He has received his visa. The travel ban is still in place, where if you live in the Netherlands, you cannot travel to the United States. They've offered, they suggest that you go to Eastern Europe, Czechoslovakia, or Romania, where you can come to the United States, but not the Netherlands. Why, I don't know. But we've also heard indications that we may travel, with the travel ban this month and next month, which he's working on getting an appointment with the U.S. consulate. But he's going to be working remotely for us in the interim. We have our preschool special ed teacher has finally arrived, and so we're excited to have her in the United States. So she's has started for us. Some classified changes, some coaches, a long list of extra duty, which are the normal time sheets that you've been signing. On the supplement, we have a resignation, a certified change, which is nice to see teachers moving over on the classified certified salary schedule. Some employees just changing positions, and again, some more pensions.
So, I'm looking at this, and I have an issue with something, but I don't want to pass the line.
Okay.
So, 13, when I originally read the resignation letter, 13 on my list, I thought it was effective immediately, and so I was okay with that, but then it says it's not effective until the end of the school year, and I think that it's something that we need to visit before, due to behavior of this.
By not approving it, doesn't help anything right now. And so it's probably discuss this outside of the board meeting you have.
Right.
And, but as part of the board meeting, there's probably not a whole lot that can be done. And not approving that resignation doesn't really speed up the process, if you get what I'm saying. So all it does is mean that it can work next year, if you don't approve it. And then you can have that discussion outside of the board meeting, that's okay.
That's fine, I didn't want to.
Right.
I just wanted to.
Yep.
I just was rereading it and saw what it said, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
John, you talked about the new teacher, are all of our Filipino teachers now on board?
They are.
Super.
All 4 Filipino teachers are in the country and have been working for a while. The last one was the one on the H-1B visa, and so she's arrived. All we are waiting on is our school psychologist, which she's on an H-1B visa as well.
Yeah, we didn't identify it.
Yep. No, all four are in this, and actually 2 of them in the first. You can start. So.
Great.
Yep.
I also have just a couple of quick
Yes.
comments. Number 16, congratulations to you. I wasn't aware of that, even though I looked at this yesterday, it did not
Yep.
sink in. And is number 19 replacing 16?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And that may be on, we don't know what's going to happen to the counseling position. She may move back, or she may stay, we just don't know. And so the position's hers, but everyone she wants, but we'll work with whoever. So the new teacher may be temporary, we don't know.
Goodness, lots to digest. Any questions or comments or other things, the personnel?
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel report.
Second.
And second.
No other comments or questions on it? Fantastic. All in favor? Thank you. Mr. Livingston, again, annual financial reports for fiscal year 2020.
Great, thank you, Madam President. So we have the regular annual financial report, that's landscaped in long pages. I think I give you 10 of those. In addition, we have 3 supplements. I don't think the motion asks for approval of the supplements, but we'll discuss that briefly if there's questions. There's one for food service, one's the classroom site fund. This money is going only to registered teachers or get working under state contract. And last one is a comparison of all the school expenditures and revenues. It's quite extensive. What I'd like to just summarize is the main report. It's about 18 pages. I think I'll give you 9. And I'm just going to follow the title page. You'll have the opportunity to sign and approve this. And just talk about our main funds here. If you look at the lower right on that page, total expenditures, I'd like to just give you the budget for those funds and the expenditures and a little bit of information. Our operating fund budget was $14.4 million last year. Expenses are listed here, $13,782,000. Cash forward, $803,000. We've got right into this next year, 21-22 budget. And that's a lot of, about 86% of that is salaries and benefits. And then we've got also our utilities and a lot of travel and other things in that operating fund. Our next one is our classroom site fund, and we did a really good job of budgeting and expending there. $1,163,000 was our budget. That's based on cash. And the revenue, we spent $1,141,000. So we spent that down to about $22,000 less than our budget in cash. And we have really good news on that. This year, the 21-22 year, we've got a slight increase in that we'll be able to increase the $8,500 was the average gross pay to our certified teachers last year, in addition to the regular salaries from that classroom site fund. This year, we'll be able to bump that to, I believe the goal is 95 gross pay, but of course, it's district costs on top of that. So that's a great sign for the state of the economy, because that's based on 0.6% of the, there we go, of the sales tax that the state brings in on a monthly basis. They really are aggressive at that, because they will make an estimate in June, the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, for the funds for the entire year. So some of this extra funds is coming from last year's and years past, where they haven't accurately budgeted, so we'll get more money this year. That's a good sign. The last one is unrestricted capital. The budget was $1,008,000. We spent $887,000 and had around $50,000 carried forward, $49,000 carried forward. And federal money went up a lot in the 2021 year. We had budgets, total budgets for all federal programs, $3.8 million. We had revenues of $3.3 million and expenditures of $3.2 million. And we had those 4 big ESSER funds. We had the debt stabilization grant plus ESSER 1, 2, 3. We've also got some cash in our forestry fund, in our E-rate fund. Anything that's a federal project is included in that 3.8 million. And that's a synopsis of the operating year in a nutshell. There's several pages of data I can go through. That's kind of a look at our major funds, capital, operating, and classroom site, and our federal fund. Any questions on the financial reports?
It's so straightforward, there's nothing you could possibly ask.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you and thank you. Like Peter says, it's straightforward. We don't have to think about it. And you just done a really good job at presenting and keeping our books balanced.
Thank you.
All right. This is time, so I apologize. Is there any additional questions or comments? This is an action item, so we need to be an approval of tonight's financial reports with the supplements.
And reports plural, like I said, there's 4, so it's
Okay, great.
annual financial reports for 2022.
take a motion for the approval of any financial reports.
And the food service.
Well, the report said it covers all four.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
A second, please. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Item 9B is James Ledbetter and the Ledbetter Law Firm as the district's preferred attorney. Do you want to present here?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think you're all aware that John and I had scheduled 3 interviews with potential attorneys that we hire on the contract to represent the district when needed. We're very fortunate and we were able to interview all 3 attorneys. And I've got to tell you, all 3 attorneys are not only significant firms, but do significant work for school districts all across the state of Arizona. So from a technical standpoint, I couldn't say anything more than all the 3 firms that we spoke with. In my opinion, and I'll let John speak to his, one firm did stand out, and the reason for that is very straightforward. 2 of the firms basically spent enough time with us, but not a lot of time with us. In fact, if you want to sign on with us, we'd be happy for you to sign on with us. One firm showed a genuine interest in our school district. One firm, in fact, we probably had to chase him out, finally would not stop talking about the school district. He was clearly interested in what was on the Chino County School District. Each of the firms is not a single person firm. They all have attorneys working with them in various legal constructs. The one firm that say seriously was interested in knowing more about this district, he's already familiar with it, and wanting to make sure that we knew that we would have his full attention time we needed to call him. And that was Mr. Ledbetter. He gets started as a matter of fact. In all seriousness, the one difference was that all incredibly competent, but Mr. Ledbetter showed a true and sincere interest in working with, getting to know, and representing our district. And that's why John and I met afterwards, my recommendation was to go with Mr. Ledbetter.
When he says he has worked with the school district in the past, do we know in what capacity?
Yes, we had an investigation that needed to take place, and actually it was recommended by Patrice, our prior attorney. So we needed a third-party investigator to come in. She recommended him. He's actually from the Regal. He's in Topwood. His office is in Topwood. So he's also local. And so he did the investigation, wrote the report, met with, I think that was Cindy for a little while, and then it was Wayne Howard for that investigation, and did a great job. But I agree with Peter. Well, first of all, he's local. I think that's one thing that I like. The other 2 firms were out of Phoenix, him being out of Topwood. He understands small schools. He's a former board member. He was a board member on the Phoenix Union High School District, which is, it's smaller than us, but not significantly smaller. It's one of the bigger districts in the Ruby Valley. And so he knows what school boards, what you guys are going through, and ultimately he's representing you guys. And so he has that experience in the business going on.
How many other attorneys are in his office?
4.
Again, not that we use an attorney that often, I just wanted
They're not, it's interesting, they're not partners. And we asked them that specifically. They are with his firm, but he's the sole partner of the firm. The other firm are more traditional organizations. And I didn't want to mention it earlier, but as John mentioned, he did do a particular project with us. I was on the board at that time, and so I actually remember working with him, and he was extremely good to work with at that time, coming out of the blue, because Patrice was not able to represent us there. So, to me, I think he will be an excellent fit for this district.
Any other comments or questions? Again, this is an action item. We will need a motion to approve James E. Ledbetter as the district's law firm.
I'll make an approval for James Ledbetter and Ledbetter Law Firm as the district's preferred attorney.
And second.
Second.
Any other questions? Fantastic, all in favor? Aye. Item 10A is proposed changes to the ASBA bylaws. This would be already, no, this was not. I apologize, I was looking at the description.
So currently, there's a School Boards Association, which you as a board are members of, has various members at large, but there also is a Hispanic and Native American Indian caucus that provides a member to the board. 1 year is a Hispanic representative, the next year is a Native American representative, they go back and forth. What this would do would be to provide 2 representatives to the board, one from the Hispanic side of the caucus and one from the Native American side of that caucus. So they would be expanding the board by 1 member, and that 1 member would be, so they'd have, instead of swapping back and forth, they would have a membership spot that would be permanently assigned to that side of that caucus.
Any questions from Mr. or any discussion? And this is an action item, and we will need a motion.
So when you approve these one at a time, it says,
Yeah, we have to do each individual vote.
so we have to, so
Yea or nay?
So each person,
Yes.
so there's only 1 vote, but each person needs to vote yes or no individually. It needs to be a roll call vote.
Yes.
I apologize, okay, roll call vote. Let's start with you, Mr. Fogel. Okay. Aye.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Thank
Don't
you.
give a second, everything with that?
No.
So Karen will actually take the results and upload them onto the ASB website. And then the rest is, they'll combine all the results from all the different school districts and probably announce it to the ASB conference what the result is.
Item 10B is our second reading of policy JICA and regulation JICA-R, student dress code. We discussed this last meeting.
Correct. The big change here is just changing the verbiage and adding violent images, which would not be allowed on clothing, which would allow other things that weren't necessarily violent or appropriate that kind of fell under, we didn't allow firearms on clothing, but I just don't want to wear an NRA hat or NRA clothing that had a firearm, as long as it wasn't a violent image, it would be allowed. So we just, the idea is the violent images aren't appropriate, and that's the specific language we have.
That's under the discretion of the school administration.
Correct. As is most of the rules we have.
Well, this could be sensitive, but I just
Yes.
thought, on the record, we need to
Yeah.
make sure that people understand.
Yeah.
Can I clarify?
Uh-huh.
I have a question about it being under the guidelines of the principal, sort of.
Discretion, yes.
So what is to say that this year, principal A says that just an NRA t-shirt is okay,
Uh-huh.
but next year, principal B says it is not. Is there consistency?
Well, one of the things is we talk about a lot of these things in our district leadership team, so we have an idea. In this case, the student through the parent it can always come to a higher level to me, and we have this discussion, and I would have a discussion with the administrator. Hey, is this really what it is saying? Is this really what the intent? Is this really what the intent of this is? Fortunately, the administrators that we have are all level-headed, are all realists, and understand. And a lot of times we'll get calls asking, hey, what do you think about this? That's where this came from. This was an issue at the middle school. We had a discussion with the middle school administration. We brought it to the DLT, had a conversation as an entire team at the DLT, and it was the DLT that actually came up with this language in here. So, the answer to your question is nothing. Administrators have a lot of discretion. Fortunately, we have a very good.
a regulation I see a dash R.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay. Item number 10C is just a first reading of revised policies, and this actually needs a little bit of
Yes.
clarification.
So these 5 regulations, you actually approved the current version at your last one. And I see Mr. Fogel smiling. We had this conversation. There's been some court action since our last meeting. And so this relates to, there were some items, some policy items that were put into the state budget, into budget bills, that were not budget items. And in past years, they've always gone through, and then it's turned into law, and then it's applied appropriately. So these were supposed to start, take effect on September 20th as well. There was a group of, well, there was a school board, ASBA, the group we were just talking about. ASA, I think, was part of that. There was other groups that got together and said, they weren't arguing about the individual items. That included a ban on mask mandates, a ban on vaccination mandates. There was a ban on teaching critical race theory, and there was something to do with elections that related to statistics. It's not an argument about those individual items, whether they're constitutional or not. That's not what this is about. It is how those items were put into the budget bill when they're not budget items. And but there's a constitutional amendment that says that each bill coming out of the legislature needs to address one item, and that item needs to be part of the plan. So what would happen is these 4 items by themselves could not get voted into by the legislature into law. So what somebody says that might have brought up or might have been a sponsor of the bill initially said, I'm not going to vote for the budget unless you put this item into the budget. Or I'm not going to, and then this is how these how these policy items, non-budget items, get put into the budget. So there was a judge last week or the week before that said, I'm not making a comment on the items themselves, but the process is not constitutional according to the way I read it. So, when these were supposed to take effect on September 29th, there was the policy was changed based on that anticipated law. You guys approved it. Now those laws have been put on hold, and so have not taken effect. So these are basically taking out that language. However, this has been expedited to the state Supreme Court, which is set to hear these items on November 2nd. So our next meeting is November 3rd. This is the first reading. I see 2 things happening November 8th at our next board meeting. This will be on the agenda, okay, for a final vote. The first thing I think could happen, I'm not even guessing this one, is that the Supreme Court comes out with a decision before that date, and and if it's saying that these things are unconstitutional, this just goes away. Or if it says that it was a constitutional place to put those in, you guys vote for these. However you vote. The second possibility is that we don't know, but the Supreme Court doesn't come out with a decision, then we probably hold off on this a month until we do have a decision from the Supreme Court. Okay? We need, in my mind, the first reading is fine, but in my mind, in order to vote on these, we need to hear from the Supreme Court what their decision, whether what those laws that were policy items placed in the budget were done legally or unconstitutional. Is that what are there questions about that? Does that make sense? Mr. Fogel, was that perfect sense? Okay.
So that is first reading only,
Yep.
discussion only, no action on it.